Hello again. Thanks everyone for continuing to listen. Vijay and Paul, I'm sure, will more than compensate and make up for it in the upcoming PI. They're doing a lot of work now on many key features such as FX, interscheme, proxies, and ISO probably later. But for today, Paul wanted me to continue with the changes. But they're doing a lot of work in the background. Good work. Thanks for all the community members who are continuing to work on improving Mojaloop assets and our services and platform in general. Want to give a quick overview of where we are on the release side with Mojaloop. Some of you have seen this before. So this is where we've come. This doesn't include the whole life cycle, obviously, but starts from 14.10 when there was some improvements in bulk. Earlier, bulk was done on the Mojaloop switch, but on the peripheries, on the edges, and the SDK scheme adapter side, it was not completely supported in the sense that someone cannot just dump a bulk and expect that to be handled. Whereas in PI 19, we pretty much achieve that, where they can give a bulk file and the processing there will take care of making sure that it formulates the request in a way that Mojaloop can handle it. Similarly, we move to more enhancements over time. And 15.20 was the release before our latest current release, where we looked at node upgrade and some performance related fixes mostly. And in Congo, there were huge performance events and enhancements and fixes related to batching, logging. And then another big activity that was done with 16.00 Congo was automating of many steps involved in the Mojaloop release process. And currently, we are at the end of the PI 24. As you know, this marks the end of PI 24 and beginning of PI 25. So as we call this a PI 25 event. So decided on the name Zambezi 16.10 as the release number for this. And this includes platform quality and security related updates, performance improvements, continued work, not done as part of this work stream, but done as part of the performance work stream and bundled with the Mojaloop release here. And we're also validating the release automation here that was done in the previous PI and release. So that's the agenda. We'll take a quick look at end of PI 24. We'll look at the overall status of where Mojaloop is from a release and features supported at this release point of view, and then a view of the Mojaloop release cycle and release pipeline as well. So the objectives, as usual, for this PI were maintaining the latest Mojaloop release, which is Mojaloop Congo version 16, and the IAC v5 as well. These are obviously there are many enhancements are always being added to the Mojaloop release and the IAC. We have David, Oscar, Nathan, Sijo, and their team members who are working constantly making improvements. But this is the latest release that we made, and the release candidate that we have is for version 16.10. This is not for deployment in production systems quite yet. The release candidate, obviously, as the name suggests, we are testing, validating that. We're finding some issues that needs to be addressed, but this is an activity in progress. But in this release candidate, we have the features from merchant use case that were delivered in the last PI that are included. And we also have more enhancements from the performance workstream and the security patches that are included in this that are going to be published as well. And we'll build on version 5 of IAC and the work that is done from version 5 until now. And then we'll make sure that the Mojaloop release works with whatever IAC release will be active at the time, and we'll make another IAC release there as well. Along with that, we want to support setting up of sandboxes and Mojaloop's maintenance of Mojaloop's dev and QA environments, supporting existing implementers. And we're coordinating with the product council on whatever the next release is and what are the features that are going to be delivered next and how they fit in with Mojaloop's release process. Without going to too much detail, I will publish this on our Mojaloop.io decks, but so the upcoming few slides talk about or list out the use cases that are supported. 12 use cases. The blue dots indicate the ones that we test on a regular basis. The other ones are supported. The framework is there, but they need to be tested on the periphery, so on the DFSP side with the devices and extra equipment that's needed there. And this gives an overview of what are the functions supported at a resource level. For example, we prioritize transfers and codes and parties, as most of you, as everyone of you likely know the 3 steps involved in Mojaloop P2P use case, and then other resources that support extensions and other use cases as well. And then on the settlement side and admin side, what are all the uses that are supported? We also have a lot of work being done on the next gen settlement, but this is the version 2 of settlements API that is already supported in the current modular version. So it supports various settlement models like deferred and multilateral net settlement, follows the settlement windows approach, and the implementation is there to support that. On the third party side, we have the linking and the third party transfers that are supported, and the API for this as well is standard that you can look up in the Mojaloop documentation. We've discussed this process in detail in some of the previous community events, but this shows a brief overview of the release process, where initially the features are brought up at the product council, discussed in PI events and other meetings related to that, go through epics and stories and refining process, and they're planned, implemented. And then there is an iterative process that goes through, that we are currently going through for example, 16.10, where we test out the various new releases, go through the testing out all the use cases that we have tests for, and making sure that all of these pass before a release is made to the community. We have several different collections that test each of the use case separately, and a huge golden path collection as well with 2,500 plus tests. So this is quite thorough. You can look at this in our docs.mojaloop.io. Mojaloop documentation talks about the various components involved. And then this is where we are with the release status for v16.10. We validated, one of the first things we wanted to do this PI was validate the release automation that was set up thanks to a core team member from last PI, Stephen Odorai, where many of the steps that were done manually earlier are now automated. I'll quickly go to the GitHub repository and show what's involved there and how we do that. But this reduces the manual effort needed by at least a week. Earlier, it used to take several weeks, but this reduces it more than 50 or 60%. But also it ensures that this process is repeatable and error-free because the manual input needed there is very minimal now. It also includes performance enhancements done by the performance workstream and other community contributors and organizations. Apart from that, many security patches and updates done to the core services are also included in this release candidate, along with deliverables from the merchant payment workstream. So we tested that out and it works locally. This is about making sure that it works in our generic dev QA environments and with the IAC and Mojaloop Helm charts as well. So there is a latest pull request that we have for this. I'll quickly show that and walk through that as well. And this is what we have on the roadmap as well. So we have services from Mojaloop integration done. We wanted to optionally make them available in the Mojaloop release bundle as well, not enabled by default. But if someone wants to use them for reference, they'll be there optionally available. And then we've been following a lot of work being done on the other work streams. For example, on the FX work stream, there's a lot of work done, presentations done to the product council and design authority, and deliverables from other work streams as well. The goal is to make sure that the deliverables there follow processes, and when they're ready, that they're absorbed into the Mojaloop releases as well. So a quick glimpse of where we were until the last PI. So this part till 16. And then this is from where we are now to the future. So Mojaloop Congo, Mojaloop Acacia and Congo. So v16.00 is the latest stable Mojaloop release, and it is supported, comes out of the box when you install with IAC v5. It had a big refactoring of infrastructure as code. In the last PI, we heard from David in Nairobi the changes that were done, incorporation of a new gateway Istio, new framework for the ORI stack for role-based access control, and other security-related aspects as well, and automation of Mojaloop releases as well. And then in 16.10 that we have a release candidate for, we have the 3 new features included. And in the future, as deliverables come available, we'll have a new release as well. Most likely we'll have a V17 soon, V16.10 this week or next week, and then a V17 on the horizon with one of the big features that comes up as well when the work stream is ready for that. We don't know the dates for that. It's up to the work stream to make them available. But once they do, then we'll absorb them and make a release working with the product council as well. So brief overview of Mojaloop Congo. We have the base use cases supported P2P, request to pay, bulk, and PSP or third party. Our deferred net and continuous gross settlement models are supported, and participant lifecycle as well. There are APIs for all of these. And Mojaloop IAC does this, but also offers a reference on how the Mojaloop platform looks like with all the supporting components that are deployed alongside and around the Mojaloop core, such as gateways, Istio, and role-based access control, the ORI stack components for supporting mutual TLS, JWS, and ILP, and the finance portal is another key component. The reporting services, dashboards, and tools for technical and monitoring and business operations as well. So the release validation, again, thanks to Stephen. So it does all of these tasks. Previously, these had to be done manually, but now we have some tools on GitHub which run the scripts and do most, if not all of these manually. The only manual intervention needed will be when something breaks or fails. We need to debug and see what's going on and fix that. But otherwise, if everything is good, these automate most of the release process, and they give a draft pull request for us to review. And once we review, the code owners, they review and approve it, we can merge and make a release on the Helm repository, which makes a Mojaloop release. So if you see, the initial process of detection itself is going to be huge. So this is not automated. It detects the breaking changes on GitHub services, GitHub repositories that Mojaloop uses, and it pulls in all the changes, generates a change log based on the template provided. And it also determines the next release version number. We can override that, but it does that already, the release automation. It generates a release note for this particular service. And then it also generates the Helm charts required and deploys them on our dev environment, dev QA environment. And it, in fact, also makes a release on our test cases repository. So every release has a corresponding test collection repository. So the repository name is, I think, ML testing toolkit test cases. So testing toolkit test cases contains the scripts or the collections of tests and provisioning files that are required for running, for validating Mojaloop releases. And this script also makes a release on that as well. So if we have a Mojaloop 16.10, then it makes a release Mojaloop 16.10 on the test cases repository. That is done. And once it does all this, it deploys this on a AWS environment that's associated with this, and it runs a test collection and gives us the result along with the pull request. So huge effort reduced here, and thanks for doing this. We can come back to this eventually, but this is a brief overview of how we work. We use not just for this work stream, but in general, and in Mojaloop for all the work streams as well. We use Slack for short-term messaging and Community Central for announcements. But GitHub issues is where we want to use for long-form discussion, issue tracking, project management. For documentation, we use Markdown, and for specifications, we use sequence diagrams. We use PlantUML and SVGs for any hand-drawn diagrams. We used to follow a forking workflow, but our CI tools have done some changes where we are forced to use branching workflow. They are very similar as well. And we also have a CLA that Simeon talked about yesterday. We have quality gateways that we saw in the CI pipeline. Our license is Apache 2.0 for code. Our API specifications, you can look at docs.mojaloop.io/API. and you can engage with the change control board through change requests and solution proposals. And we follow the scale agile framework in general for the work streams as well. There's a link here if you want to join this work stream. But before wrapping up, I want to quickly share and show a sample pull request. So this is Mojaloop Helm repository. And what we have here, if you see, is a pull request that is automatically raised by the automation script that we discussed so far. So if you see, there's a release candidate for Mojaloop MVC version 16.10, and you can see the release notes here. So the new features listed, bug fixes, application versions, the APIs that are used, some testing notes, breaking changes, known issues. Some of these need updated, but most of those are automated. And for generating this, what we do is in GitHub Actions, we have create release pull request action. And once we run this, then it gives us all this functionality. You can see all that. So if you see the last run for this, these are all the steps involved. So you can see there is a setup which checks out the resources required, and it generates the change log, determines the version number, next release, preparing the test cases, generating release note. And some key things here, if you see, it deploys the backend as well, and deploys them and runs the TTK tests and some cleanup there as well. So we've tried this. There are some configuration issues we're still seeing. Our release validation is thorough, so we don't want to make the release when we have known issues. So we're holding off on that. Once these are addressed and fixed, we'll move forward with the release. And I also want to see quickly testing toolkit test cases. If you see the release here, you see a 16.10 release that was triggered by that script. So it automatically generated a release based on this number, which will be used for release validation of version 16.10 release candidate.